What's going on, everybody? It is NFL Week 4, Fantasy Week 4, Stardom Situm. We're missing a key member of the streams. He writes the articles. He's always fun, always entertaining. We'll miss him tonight. But Coach, family responsibilities, family duties, and hey, I can't blame him. He's enjoying the tradition that is homecoming with the family tonight. So it's just going to be Henry and I here. We're going to hang out for at least a few minutes here and open it right away to you guys for questions. We are going to briefly work through Coach's articles as well if we're not getting any questions, but please go ahead, fire them away. We'll get to as many as we can here. I'm also sort of racing a clock. I'm waiting for my whole family to come home from dinner. And as soon as they do, it's going to get real loud in here. So we're going to do what we can with the time that we have. Henry, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, doing great, Jake. Just got back from the gym here a few minutes ago. So ready to talk a little fantasy with you. I know you got some guys you wanted to bring up and discuss, and we can take a look at what the coach has and, do it in honor of him. We'll try to make him proud here tonight. I mean, this is kind of his deal to start sit. So I'm ready to jump into it. Crazy game last night, though. Huh? How about those Jaguars showing maybe a little bit of a fight?
Yeah, the slow the slow first half for the Bengals killed any sort of chance they had to make that cover. I was hoping to win a sweatshirt last night via Barstool with the Bengals covering, but pretty much after the first quarter, I knew that was not going to happen, especially with the missed kick. But yeah, pretty crazy game last night. T. Higgins obviously was out. A pretty decent night for Joe Mixon and Tyler Boyd. But my question for you, staying in that conference, actually, well, at least one of the teams, my biggest decision of the weekend, Deontay Johnson. First of all, is he an automatic start for you again, coming back off the injury against the Packers defensive Packers secondary that, has looked improved with Eric Stokes over Kevin King, but we're still dealing with an injured Big Ben and an injured Deontay Johnson. My other guy that I would possibly start over him would be Cole Beasley. Beasley's had 2 out of 3 pretty big weeks. Am I crazy to want to start Beasley over Deontay Johnson this weekend, or is Johnson if he's healthy, he must be in the lineup for you?
Well, as someone who's going to have to fire Deontay Johnson right back up in a 16-team league, I don't have a choice. He's easily one of my top 3 receivers, and you start 3 in that league. So I'll be playing him. I mean, looking at the numbers, right, you would think the Bills against the Texans, it's like, okay, everyone in that offense should go off. But if Buffalo gets out to a big lead, I know when we were doing the ad drop show that really became the Q&A show Tuesday night, Zach Trevor and I, like Zach was saying, how, the Bills are not afraid to run the football this year. They've been running it with success. Both Zack Moss and Devin Singletary, for that matter, getting it done on the ground. So the disparity in fantasy points allowed on average between the Texans and the Packers to the wide receiver position, not that large. 30.8 per game for Houston compared to 28.4 for the Packers. But I also, the other big factor I think here that needs to be addressed is the Steelers cannot run the football. We saw that last week. I mean, Naji Harris, RB1 in fantasy last week, and he had 40 yards rushing. They can't run. The offensive line cannot block to run. And Ben Roethlisberger obviously has a rapport with Deontay Johnson, whether he's hurt or not. I think Johnson's going to make himself available. It'll be interesting to see, how healthy Juju Smith-Schuster is coming back from his injury there as well. So I think you got to roll with Johnson there. I could see the Bills getting a big lead early, and that just kind of slows down the passing game there.
My only thing is, we saw, like you said, only 46, 46 yards on the ground, but Deontay Johnson, RB1, had a ton of receptions. Maybe a reception or two goes in the direction of Juju Smith-Schuster and or Deontay Johnson, so you can't really rely on that as heavily. But Green Bay seems like kind of a defense to figure it out against, right? I mean, they're not great against the run, 17th overall, so it's not like they're horrible, but everybody knows so far that the weak spot of the Packers has been the cornerbacks and the passing defense, but they haven't been great at stopping the run for years and years and years. So I think Harris could have a decent day, and I think where I'm going with this is I think the Steelers offense could have a pretty good day overall in Lambeau. One of my favorite teases of the weekend is the over at 39. I believe it's a 7-point teaser. The over 39 most definitely going to hit. So I'm just going to throw out my free teaser of the weekend right now. Chiefs minus a half a point, Bucks minus a half a point, and then Packers and Steelers over 39. I don't see how it loses, and it is plus 154 if I remember correctly after placing it. So not bad odds for that. But I think the Steelers could definitely find success in both the passing game and the running game. So it's tough for me right now to bench Deontay Johnson, but you're talking about two injured guys or two injury prone guys versus Cole Beasley, who's been pretty reliable and pretty dependable. And really the only, like you said, the only like hesitance on Cole Beasley would be game plan after they go up by, a number of touchdowns against a Texans team who they're favored by 16.5 over. So that worries me for Cole Beasley. That's kind of why I've been going back and forth. I really don't know what to do here.
Yeah, just to echo some of those points, I dug up adjusted efficiency numbers for defense while you were talking. I always like to look at those, even sometimes over fantasy points allowed. Fantasy points will give you an idea of how guys cover a certain position, but they can be fluky, right? Like we always say, fantasy points don't necessarily tell the whole story, just like a box score or scoring touchdowns, etc. Adjusted efficiency is the way to go. On that front, the Packers 25th against both the run and the pass.
Not good.
So, yeah, I think Pittsburgh, like you say, they're going to look better offensively this week than they did last week, regardless. Cincinnati's defense, not sure what last night was, but they are a defense that I've been hyping up here for the past week and a half. So I liked what I saw last week out of them. It'll be a little easier, I would think, this week. Also, the offensive line getting a little healthier there for Pittsburgh as well. The Texans 30th against the run, so they can't stop anybody on the ground, but they're 7th in adjusted efficiency against the pass. So again, maybe the Bills are running the ball before they're up by 17 or whatever the point spread is there.
Sure.
So, and that's just how they want to go about attacking this Houston defense. That wouldn't surprise me either. And I like the teaser. I think the Chiefs leg would be the one that worries me the most. I could see the Eagles pulling a little surprise there, but not too worried. I
just don't see the Chiefs starting one and I can't see the Chiefs starting 1-3. No, especially against a Eagles team that got whooped by Dallas. And you would think Dallas is no better. Dallas and Kansas City at worst are on equal planes right now. They got whooped by Dallas, and now they're on a short week against a pissed off Chiefs team. I mean, Patrick Mahomes probably hasn't lost 2 games in a row more than maybe one time in his NFL career. I don't know. It's just, I don't see them. I don't care who they're playing this week. Like I would lean Chiefs when you're talking money line. Now, do I like the 7-point spread? No, I said, you could have gotten them at 5 last week before the Eagles played the Cowboys. So I don't really like the spread. I'm going to stay off the spread. But as far as, if you're teasing it down to a half point or a full point, I'm not afraid of the Eagles in that position at all. So I do love the teaser. And if somehow Big Ben and Aaron Rodgers can't muster 39 points between them at Lambeau, then I guess, I'm just going to have to live with that. But I don't see how that game doesn't go over 39.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I guess the only thing with the Eagles is they were a team I thought was going to be absolutely dreadful coming into the year. Then they go out and impress in weeks 1 and 2. And then last week, I don't know what they were even doing offensively, let alone they couldn't stop Dallas. So, maybe my deal is I just can't figure the Eagles out. And that's why I'm like, okay, as good as I feel about the Chiefs here in this spot, I'm a little weary. Looks like we have got some questions coming up in the chat. Bruisen is talking about last night's Thursday night football game. A couple of Jaguars receivers here. He wants to know Marvin Jones or Laviska Shenault.
Didn't one of them break their ankle
of the season? That was DJ Chark. He's done for the year. So actually, the fantasy value of both Jones and Chenault, it figures to get a bit of a bump here, just knowing that Chark is out of the way. For me, I don't know how you can say no to Marvin Jones based on the first 3 weeks, and even going back to the preseason, he's kind of been the preferred guy for Trevor Lawrence all along. Now, as I pull up what happened
18,
last night.
18 week 1, 17 week 2, 12 week 3.
Right. Now, unfortunately, last night, to counteract that, it was Chenault, 6 catches, 99 yards, and Marvin Jones down there, 3 receptions, 24 yards. Man, last night's game was just weird on several levels, I feel like, Jake. But, maybe the Bengals were game planning for Jones there a little bit. And so that's why he was limited. But Jacksonville could not do anything in the second half because the defense couldn't get a single stop.
Yeah.
I'm still going to stick with Jones here. I'm going to ride that train into the ground. Long term, though, talking about dynasty leagues, I still like Laviska Shenault, both as a guy and a player. So maybe if we're talking there, but this season I think I got to go with the veteran here still.
Yeah, he's got the name value. He's got the history, and he's been reliable. 3 out of 4 weeks. It's not like he had one big week. So 3 out of 4 weeks, and like you said, the Bengals defense is good, and they probably were game planning for him. And the Bengals defense didn't play as well as they could have last night, but they did make a goal line stand and did a couple other nice things. It was the first week of the season that Trevor Lawrence did not throw an interception, so. That kind of was against them as well. But I would have to go with Marvin Jones as well until Shenault can prove otherwise on like a week-to-week basis that he's now outperforming Jones. I think if you're going to pick between the two, you're going to have to give the benefit of the doubt to Jones.
Yeah, 100% with you there. And thanks, Nick. We appreciate it. We're trying. Let's see here. Now we got JJ also chiming in the chat. What's up, boys? What do you think about trading Miles Sanders and Tyler Lockett for Joe Mixon? I have Davante Adams, Justin Jefferson, and DJ Moore for wide receivers, and he only has Ezekiel Elliott and Sanders as running backs. So I cannot do that trade right now, JJ. And the reason being is Joe Mixon. I don't know if you were tuning into that lovely Jaguars-Bengals Thursday night football game we had last night. I know it's not the most appealing of matchups, but Joe Mixon finished that game on the sidelines, hobbling around. I don't know exactly what the injury was. I have not followed up on that today, so I can try to do that here on the fly. But it was Samaje Perine in there at the end for the Bengals, so I would be having to monitor Mixon's status going forward. Now, I don't think it's going to be anything super serious. It's just my initial reaction. But let me try and find more info on that. Jake, if we assume Mixon is healthy here going forward, would you do this trade? As our fearless leader, Zach Bruner, says it's a high ankle sprain for Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and that is a big-time injury I'm staying away from with a running back. Look, I like Joe Mixon a lot coming into this season. I have him in like 4 of my 7 leagues. But right now, there's no chance. Davante Adams, great. Justin Jefferson, great. There's 0 chance I'm giving up Tyler Lockett right now for an ankle-injured running back. I mean, Tyler Lockett put up 57, almost 58 points in the first 2 weeks. He's only played 3 games. So you have him coming up this weekend as well. So he's got kind of a game up on Joe Mixon, who really, like I said, he had a decent night last night, but as Henry said, he ended up missing out on maybe some extra point opportunities by having to be on the sideline. And now he's got an ankle sprain. And look, if he's got a sprained ankle and you've got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins comes back, Tyler Boyd, and you got Joe Burrow who can throw the ball and do it well, Zach Taylor's probably going to look at it and be like, well, I guess we're throwing the ball more for the next couple weeks. Like Mixon's usage will probably go down while his ankle heals up. And again, the biggest hindrance for me, I'm not trading Tyler Lockett right now. No way.
Yeah, I'd be right there with you. Not a big Lockett guy, speaking for me personally here,
Just look at
but
what he's done this season: 100 yards, 178 yards, 4 receptions, 8 receptions, 4 receptions, 3 total touchdowns. And again, he's still got a game coming up this week, so you've got that as an advantage over Joe Mixon's already played his 4th game, which obviously is going to equal out, as when the weekend ends. But either way, you could still stick Lockett in as a flex or whatever if you like him this week, rather than making that trade. I'm just not giving away a guy who's put up 3 touchdowns, 60 points, and 300 yards already this season. I'm just not going to do it.
yeah, I think overall he's just too inconsistent for my liking. But I'm not doing this trade. I'm right there with you. Looks like Zach Taylor's suggesting that Mixon's injury is quote unquote minor, but take that for what it's worth. From the team coach. Uh,
Well, the
he
other thing to
very
throw out there
easily could
too is
be out a
like,
couple games here. And Miles Sanders is a guy I had as a buy low candidate in my buy low, sell high column this week because the 2 carries last week, I'm sorry, that's absolutely ridiculous. Sanders needs to be more involved in the Eagles offense, and he will be going forward. Um, eh, you know, Once we get maybe more clarity on Mixon's health, uh, you can potentially revisit this deal. But to Jake's point, you got to get something else back. You're giving up 2, quality, I think, fantasy starters here at the very least in Sanders and Lockett for a solid running back. And I know you got your receivers there, but one of them goes down, you're going to want that trade back. So
yeah, the gap between Sanders and Joe Mixon is not worthy of getting rid of Tyler Lockett. Like, you're talking maybe a bench player there, maybe a good tight end, like not Tyler Lockett. The gap does not justify getting rid of a player like that on top of it. In a 2-for-1 trade, no chance. No chance.
yeah, 100% with you. So hopefully that helped, JJ. But still, definitely keep an eye on that Mixon injury, and then maybe you can see what else is out there, or if you can flip some other bench parts around and get him for a little bit of a cheaper return going out. That is, it might be worth it here, depending on what his status is. Griffin in the chat here, Jake. He has got Curtis Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Corey Davis. Love to see it, Griffin. Or Will Fuller. He's starting. It looks like he needs to start one of these. And it is a full PPR league. So this would be Curtis Samuel with Washington against Atlanta, Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers taking on Seattle, Corey Davis and the Jets going up against the Titans at home, Will Fuller with the Dolphins, and of course Jacoby Brissett under center there, not Tua Tagovailoa, and they are at home to the Colts. Any initial thoughts or leans on this one?
I think your best chance at a touchdown is going to come from either Davis or Fuller. Curtis Samuel, I don't believe has played in a game yet this year, or he hasn't played since week 1. He was on IR. And then, him coming back his first week with Taylor Heineke under center, just not quite sure what you're going to get there. Brandon Ayuk's kind of been a bum all season long, and there's probably going to be, I would assume, a tightly contested, not that high scoring game against Seattle. I see maybe like a 23-20 type game, Seattle, San Francisco. I think the Jets are going to score this week. I think the Titans are ultimately going to crush them, but I think the Jets are going to be able to score. And Will Fuller, seemingly somehow, as long as he's healthy, always makes himself a threat in the end zone as well. So I don't love any of these guys, but right now you're picking your best chance to get into the end zone, and I think that's either Davis or Fuller.
Yeah, just looking at a few things here. So you were right about Curtis Samuel. Obviously, he's been out thus far, making his turn. Not sure that I want to jump on that. I'm kind of with you there. Atlanta's defense quietly has not been awful, I guess, to put it politely so far. Not good by any means, but not awful. The offense has really been kind of putting them in a lot of bad spots. just with Matt Ryan's incapabilities and whatnot there. In terms of which guys from this list I think are, they're going to see enough workload to probably be the lowest risk plays. That would be Corey Davis and Brandon Ayuk. We've got to remember Brandon Ayuk was injured in the preseason. That bled over into week 1. He was a non-factor. Week 2 sort of started ramping it up. Last week, played, let me see here, 85% of the offensive snaps for the 49ers. He was on the field. Put up some numbers, still second fiddle, to Kittle and Devo Samuel there a little bit. But as long as he's trending healthy, and all reports seem to indicate he is, that Ayuk Devo Samuel tandem could be it's going to be really nice there for the Niners. They are playing a Seattle defense, Seattle secondary, obviously, that's very beatable this week.
They're one of the only defenses that are worse than Green Bay, and I mean, he balled out last week against Green Bay. So
yeah. Now, the Will Fuller one's interesting because I think Brissett's the guy I want in Miami when it comes to, throwing the deep ball, pushing it down the field. But last week in Fuller's first game back, Brissett was targeting Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki a whole lot more. And the Dolphins were very conservative on the play calling, so I don't know if that'll change this week. But I think the two safest ones for me, it's either Ayuk or Davis. And then it might just come down to, kind of how you feel. Do you want to hold your nose and start a New York Jet? But Davis is on the field. He's the main guy right up there. Braxton Berrios and he are the two primary targets for Zach Wilson. And, looking at the teams the Jets have played so far, I'm not saying here just yet that they are definitely going to go out and give the Titans, all they can handle in this game. But I put Tennessee on blast in the upset alert column this week because they're down their two receivers. The Jets defense always plays well at home. And this Titans defense is by far the worst that the Jets have faced so far. So if Wilson gets any sort of competent offensive line blocking this week up front, I'm curious to see what he can do. And maybe Corey Davis can have a little value, find the end zone there. So I think I would lean Ayuk.
The other thing is, you kind of talked me into Ayuk as well, especially after thinking about what he did, last week, and how close you can compare the Seattle defense to the Green Bay defense. I think they have a lot of the same flaws. But the thing with Corey Davis, I mean, the Jets have scored 20 points all season, so 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. The owner of those 2 touchdowns are both, yeah. Corey Davis owns both those touchdowns. So the likelihood of if the Jets are able to score, he has a very, very high, likelihood that it's going to be him. Jets have not scored a single touchdown in the last 2 weeks. So obviously his numbers have been pretty minimum. But if the Jets can move the ball, like you said, if Zach Wilson can get some protection, if they score, it's a very high % chance that it's going to be Corey Davis. So like Henry said, maybe you want to plug your nose, take the dive, and hope that he does find the end zone, maybe even twice again. But Ayuk against a bad Seattle defense, I think you talked me into that one.
Yeah, I want to look and see just in our stats section on the site if I can find what okay, so we don't have Ayuk in there. So coming through 3 games, Corey Davis, 7.3 looks per game, 10.1% of the touches on offense. That's actually lower than Berrios, even though he's getting looked at slightly more. In the red zone, though, it's the 2 running backs for the Jets, Michael Carter and Ty Johnson, and Davis thus far. Of course, the Jets haven't gone to the red zone that many times, but in yards per touch, he's easily been the most effective. So now Jake, you got anything else? Because I want to find more on Ayuk here.
I I have about 5 minutes before I'm going to have to be forced to hop off here. So if anybody else wants my expertise on anything, please ask in the next 5 minutes or so. I really didn't come all that prepared to talk about anybody specifically except for Deontay Johnson. Antonio Gibson is another name that I wanted to bring up, though. You guys restored my faith in him last week, told me to play him, and I'm glad you did because he had like 18 points or something like that. Yeah, he should have a fine week again this week, I would assume, right?
I would say so. I'm not afraid of the Falcons defense. Like I said, they haven't been, I don't think as bad as some people think. But they also have held their own, and it's just the offense has done nothing. So in the late in these games, they're exhausted. They've had to defend a few short fields, etc. But I think potential to be a shootout there down in Atlanta this week, just given how the Redskins have been surprisingly terrible defensively. I don't know, that might be one of the biggest surprises of the year for me so far. Ayuk had 6 targets, by the way, last week, 4 catches, 37 yards, and a touchdown. To Jake's point, that was against the Packers, and kind of a similar line of thinking here with the Seahawks. So
how about
so you can make an argument, I think, both ways is where it comes down to there.
Yeah, I agree with you. Another guy that did just pop into my mind, we already talked about this game a little bit, but is Zack Moss like a stardom until otherwise for you? Because like you said, big time game plan for the Bills. I believe he's gotten like heavy usage over Singletary, and he put up 15.4 in week 2, 18.1 in week 3. And now, like we've talked about, they're playing against a Texans team, which you said is good against the pass, but not great against the run, right? So 16.5 point favorites, not good against the run. I don't see why he would fall off this week.
Yeah, adjusted-wise, the Texans are a lot worse against the run. Defensively, Zack Moss, he's the red zone back for the Bills. So if they're running the ball down in the red zone, it's going to be him. So I think, honestly, looking at this offense, right, and we can make the argument in fantasy, okay, we don't want touchdown-dependent players. But the Bills' offense is good enough, and especially in a game like this, they're going to score some touchdowns. So why wouldn't I want to throw a guy like Zack Moss in there? I expect Buffalo fully to make multiple trips to the red zone and convert on those against Houston. I'm starting him this week. That is for sure. And looking at the Bills' schedule in the coming weeks, we got a couple more chat questions here for us, Jake. After this week against Houston, the Bills have the Chiefs, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Jets the next 5 weeks. They should be able to score some points in those games. I don't know how exactly all the Dolphins would be the one I'd want to look at as far as their defense against the run so far. The Jets are actually not bad. Looking at fantasy points allowed to the position. Well, there you go. Dolphins and Jets are bottom 3 in the league, both allowing over 30 points per game thus far to running backs, and the Chiefs are right behind, 29.77. So Zack Moss is a guy who
Zack Moss looks good for the next bunch of weeks then. So
maybe a little buy him now if you were looking at trades, but
sure.
Let's see here. Start sit question. Blue Crew in the chat. Half point PPR, 12-team super flex. We want to start Davonte Smith with the Eagles going up against the Chiefs, or Brandon Cooks with the Texans going up against the Bills. Look, I love me some Brandon Cooks, but
yes.
Oh,
yeah. Are you going Devonta Smith? I was just going to say, look, Brandon Cooks, extremely under. He's the 6th overall ranked or 6th overall scoring wide receiver. I think that the ball is just going to be in the air constantly for the Texans. I mean, when you're 16.5 point underdogs, you don't come out and run the ball 50 times. Like, they're just not going to. So I like Brandon Cooks here. And I think the Chiefs, we talked about this off air. Like, I think the Chiefs are going to come into Philadelphia. Absolutely no nonsense, all business. Look, they're 2-1. They've had some close losses. The Eagles are on a short week, and they just got crushed in prime time. So I don't really like anything about the Eagles this weekend. And I think Cooks could see maybe even a garbage time touchdown on top of like a regular time, if you want to call it that, touchdown. So just like gut feeling, gut reaction. I like Brandon Cooks, but you were obviously going to say Devonta Smith, so let's hear it.
Yes, I was, and I'm still going to say Davonte Smith. Just looking at some more numbers here. So Devonta Smith through 3 games leads the Eagles in targets. He doesn't lead them in receptions, but he leads them in targets. 115 total yards and a touchdown. The real thing, though, for me, when I look at these two matchups, I know Brandon Cooks is really the guy in Houston, and Davis Mills leaned on him pretty heavily there last week against Carolina. But do I really want to, Jake, I don't know, do you really want to start a guy going up against the Buffalo Bills defense, allowing the second fewest fantasy points to receivers, just over 25 per game? Or do you want to start the leading receiver in terms of targets and snap percentage played for the Eagles, going up against the Chiefs defense that allows over 40 fantasy points per game to wide receivers and ranks dead last in adjusted defensive efficiency, really overall and in both individual categories, but specifically against the pass is where we're looking here. I know you're looking at Kansas City to be all no nonsense business here, whatever. The Eagles got stomped last week too, so I have a really hard time.
They got stomped last week, but they're not the ex Super Bowl champions. They don't have Patrick Mahomes. They don't have Nick Sirianni. Like they're not. You can't compare these two teams. Like that's crazy talk. And Devonta Smith, not even 10 points combined the last 2 weeks. Not even 10. Tyrod Taylor and Davis Mills has gotten you 18, 20, and 22 out of Brandon Cooks. I understand that you're betting like. So you and I are looking at this a little different. I'm looking straight up at the player. You're looking at who's the player playing against. So you're kind of picking based off the opponent. I'm picking based off of just the player. Two completely different philosophies there. Both our arguments, I believe, make sense.
Yeah. You're getting arguments from both sides. Like I said, before we even started, I love me some Brandon Cooks. And it's hard to say to not go with him. But if we're looking at solely the matchups, what we've seen out of the opposing teams these first couple weeks, and I think Devonta Smith's production stands to increase a bit further, just given what his role has been in this offense so far. I could really easily see a shootout there in Philadelphia. So I
just don't see how you lead your team in targets and
maybe I'm overthinking it.
Yeah, you put up 10 points, in the last 2 weeks. That's tough. That's tough for me.
I don't know.
But
hopefully we were helpful.
It's a good one to stick a pin in and see how things play out last week because, like I said, I think both of us have very valid points, and I think that we're kind of looking at it, analyzing it, and arguing it two completely different ways. So it's interesting, but I'm going to mark this one down. Smith versus Cooks. We'll come back to it next Thursday and see what happened.
Yeah, I know the Texans just got done playing a really good, actually the top defense adjusted wise in Carolina last week, and Cooks was still able to go out and have a solid game. But, it's, I don't know, I guess maybe it's like my perception of the Bills defense. Like I'm really worried that Houston just does nothing this week, even like, when they're trailing and they are trying to throw it around or whatever. I could really see this one being ugly for them offensively, or maybe it's better. Who knows? I guess fair. We'll have to see.
I was literally just going to say, Blue, make sure you come back on Thursday and let us know who you ended up going with and if it worked out for you or not. But glad you subscribed, man. We do, not just us, but we do all sorts of fantasy content all week long, bunch of different types of streams. So thank you for subscribing, and hope we can help you more along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple more here, Jake. We got to breeze through. I know you said you're getting close on time. Texas Boy 445, trade Robbie Anderson for Allen Robinson, ? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I have a real strong opinion on this. You're kind of trading, I don't know, a bit of a turd for turd right now. if you're trying to look to make that trade. I believe there was an article published something along the lines of something. It was a diss on Allen Robinson over on Flurry. I can't remember, but it was a very funny headline. I don't know either of those guys. I guess you're just kind of banking on who you think's going to rebound and have a little bit of a better run down the stretch, but I can't sit here and tell you to make that trade or not make that trade. And I know that's a little bit less of a helpful answer than the one that we gave Blue, but it's just complete honesty from me right now.
It is a hold your nose situation for sure, just given, the state of the Bears offense and whatnot, but I wouldn't turn that down. We're looking at Allen Robinson, a guy who has managed to produce the last few years, even though the Bears have not been that great offensively. You feel like it's only a matter of time before he finds it. I know Zach this week has been a huge proponent that Allen Robinson finally has a top 20 week. In terms of consistency, now obviously Robbie Anderson had a great year last year. Carolina's got a few more weapons this year. Christian McCaffrey's out right now, but it's not a long-term thing with him, whereas he missed most of last year. Also, rookie Terrace Marshall. I really like what I've seen out of him so far, the rookie out of LSU. So Sam Darnold's able to spread it around a little more, I think. And it's not necessarily the Anderson necessarily having the weekly role there in Carolina. Just looking at targets for the Panthers thus far, he actually is tied with now current Jaguar Dan Arnold after that trade this week. But Anderson, 11 targets through 3 games, 31 for DJ Moore, 17 for McCaffrey, 14 for Marshall. So you could make the argument he's the wide receiver 4 there in that offense. And, Allen Robinson's a buy low right now if you believe that he can overcome Mr. Matt Nagy and regain, return to superstar status.
It also doesn't help that they have 3 quarterbacks who none of which are very good and don't even know who's starting on a weekly basis. That's not a situation that I love. And then to the cherry on top, their coach is probably the worst one in the NFL right now, or at least the worst one going. So yeah, like I said, and Henry said as well, I think this is like a gut decision for you, and it's which guy am I gambling on the rest of the season? And it's kind of a red-black situation. You're going to either be right or you're going to be wrong,
But thinking back to preseason ADP, though, we can hindsight's 2020 here. But Allen Robinson, the more highly valued player, if you're able to do that trade straight up, I think you got to go for it. And I love Zach in the chat. Allen Robinson will throw it to himself this week if he needs to. Shades of me as a young kid playing backyard football all by myself. I had some competitive games out there against myself. Also injured myself a few times. It was good times. Greg in the chat, who wins a trade of Robert Woods and Myles Gaskin for David Montgomery PPR? Man, Robert Woods, that's another receiver who I think the Rams deal is going to balance out at some point, right? Defenses have to adjust here eventually for Cooper Kupp. And that is going to bring Robert Woods back into the fold. It's curious, though, for me to see Van Jefferson and Deshaun Jackson getting involved here as well. So it's not just a two-man show there, it feels like to me this year. But Woods and Gaskin for Montgomery. I mean, Bears offense is the Bears offense, right? Love David Montgomery, but I would take the 2 for 1 there. I think. Any disagreement out of you?
No, I think Robert Woods figures it out, and once Cooper Kupp cools off a little bit, I think Woods will maybe see some more targets, see some more action. We've seen them be able to split time and split usage pretty effectively, and have them both be very strong fantasy candidates in the past. I really doubt that for all 17 weeks or 17 games, Cooper Kupp just dominates in the fashion that he has. So I'm definitely holding on to Robert Woods. And yeah, because of what we just argued against Allen Robinson and against the quarterback situation, you definitely like yourself a little bit of David Montgomery moving forward as well. But in PPR, I mean, Montgomery's only got 6 catches all season versus I mean, Robert Woods could do that any given day. So I don't like. I'm not going to give up 2 for 1 there. It's just not. It's not the right trade for the right return.
Yeah, and I mean, even if we just break this down, looking at the offenses, right? Dolphins offense shaky, but I've been tooting the horn all week that Brissett is the better option for them than Tagovailoa, and I think he proves that before Tua gets back. So it'll be interesting to see how things progress there. But and then Robert Woods, there's going to be some positive regression. I think we're both on the same plane there. And the Rams offense is an offense. If I can have a piece of it, and if I can buy a piece of it for cheap, I'm down to do that right now. I really am.
You're gonna hate yourself though if you make that trade and say week 8 through 14, Robert Woods is putting up 12 to 16 points every week. The Rams are just completely dominating, and David Montgomery, yeah, he's carrying the ball 25 times, but the Bears are just getting pounded. They're pathetic offense. They don't have a head coach anymore. You're gonna kick yourself if you gave away Robert Woods for a guy on a bum team. So
right, yeah. So if you're only getting one guy back, and the offense has the question marks that one guy's offense has, in this case with Montgomery, I don't know how you make an argument.
Montgomery with an injury history as well, and if his usage is going to go way up because the quarterbacks can't move the ball downfield, you're trading for a potentially injury-prone guy with a terrible offense on a terrible team. Yeah, just not where you want to be when you already have a piece of maybe the best, at least top 3 offenses going right now in the NFL. I'm going to hold on to that piece. If you don't mind, Henry, I'm going to address a couple of these, fly through, give my 2 cents, and then you can kind of just keep on going through until I got to hop off. Lockett or Goodwin the rest of the season, I don't know why it has to be an either or. That seems like a matchup-based thing to me. If you got both of them, they're both going to have great spots this year. Did I win this trade? Gave Calvin Ridley and Cordaro Patterson, got Tyler Lockett, Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, and Jerry Judy. I'm going to say, I don't know. I'm going to say no, just because you're traded for injured players and Julio. Tyler Lockett, you got to love, but I mean, Patterson has found himself a role. He's looked really good. And Ridley is always dangerous, even when Atlanta's very bad. That's a tough one, though, Henry. Maybe you could spend a few minutes on that. Trade Lockett, Pitts, and Higbee for Kelsey. Lockett is on my bench. I mean, no. 3 players for Travis Kelsey. I mean, Pitts and Higbee haven't been great. Obviously, Kelsey is the dominant tight end, but why does everyone want to give away Tyler Lockett? That's my question.
Because
he's the 3rd overall wide receiver through right now.
No, he's too inconsistent. I have never owned a share of Tyler Lockett. I am proud to say it right
then
here.
You've missed out on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of fantasy points. Yeah, there are a couple weeks that that he's gonna give it up to DK Metcalf, but he comes up. He had that 60-point week last year. He had 2 monster weeks to start this year. I don't understand why everyone wants to trade Tyler Lockett, but again, you're trading 3 players for the best tight end in football. That's true, but Lockett does this every year. Yeah, but then he comes back during the middle of the year and does it again.
And then maybe he helps you get into the fantasy playoffs, and then when the playoffs roll around, he disappears. I want to win a championship. I don't want to win the middle of the year, Jake. Come on.
Whatever, man. Tyler, right now, okay, your best argument right now is yeah, he's at his highest value that he's ever going to have. But all the trade, so why wouldn't I trade him away if I think he's going to, fall off? Sure, that makes total sense. But the trades that have been proposed tonight, you're not getting enough back. Take advantage of how good Tyler Lockett has been. Get something back. And I understand. I'm not saying Kelsey's nothing. He obviously is something. But, and whatever, if you want to offload Pitts and Higbee because Kelsey is going to be, you're going to lock him in, maybe that's not such a horrible trade. Now that I'm talking myself through it because, Higbee and Pitts kind of become irrelevant when you have Kelsey. And then if you're trying to trade Tyler Lockett because you think he's going to fall off and you can get Kelsey back, sure. I don't mind that one. But just in general, if you're going to trade Tyler Lockett right now, you have to get something back.
Yeah, I mean, Higbee's kind of whatever to me, just kind of a Jags filler piece in this trade. Kyle Pitts, I am disappointed with right now. I think my gut tells me it can only get better for him from here, but I would much rather have Kelsey as my starting tight end for the rest of the year. So I don't know. And my
You
Lockett
also,
bias is just like, I really don't care about Tyler Lockett either. So
James can also look at it this way. If you already made that trade that you asked us about, now you'd be essentially trading Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, and Cordaro Patterson essentially for Travis Kelsey. I mean, you get Julio, you get Michael Thomas, sure. I mean, Jerry Judy has been hurt both years in the league now. But I mean, essentially, you're trading 3 pretty good fantasy players for Travis Kelsey.
Well, it depends on. All right, James. Let me give you my full thoughts here, okay? I am all aboard selling the Atlanta offense and it's no slight against Calvin Ridley, Cordero Patterson, Kyle Pitts. I think Matt Ryan's lost it. I have not been impressed with what I've seen. I actually think Big Ben has more arm strength and more arm talent left than Matt Ryan. Through 3 weeks, Big Ben just has gotten no time to throw whatsoever behind that O-line. So there's that. I'm down with selling Falcons. Calvin Ridley's still going to be a solid fantasy guy. Cordero Patterson, we didn't expect him to be a solid fantasy guy, but he's a top 10 RB at this point. You're selling him high, and I'm good with selling him high. I don't know that he necessarily falls off as much as we'd like to think right now, just because Matt Ryan can't get the ball down the field. But I'm here for it. Julio Jones might miss this week, but I think Julio Jones is another guy. I look at this trade and I'm like, okay, I said it's going to probably get better for Kyle Pitts. It has to get better for Julio Jones, right? Like this offense is going to figure it out. If he's healthy, comes back, I like his prospects still going forward. Kind of getting him as a buy low almost in a way to me right now. When Jerry Judy gets back, I like him a lot. And Michael Thomas, it's kind of a wait and see. Travis Kelsey, to me, is the guy that I most want to own out of all of these players. And it's really not that close. Like, I like Ridley, but it's still.
If you're comfortable giving up that much for him, like, of course, who doesn't want Travis Kelsey?
Yeah, I might try and poke around here and see, all right, can I give you 3 guys? And James, maybe in trade discussions, you go full Jake Senholz on whoever you're doing this trade with and be like, look at what Lockett's done. And
you got to sell your product, man.
Yeah, if this guy's got another bench piece that you might be intrigued by for some added depth or whatever, try to add him on. Maybe swap Higbee out for, like a receiver, running back or something that he wants to get a little more coming back. So I get the 3-for-1 concern. Or maybe I could get his bench players he has to drop. Yeah, that's the other thing too. So you're giving up 3. He's giving up 1. He's going to have to drop a couple guys. It's worth floating out there. Be like, look at the bench and be like, hey, I like this depth piece. You don't have to say that you're just trying to get him because he has to drop him anyway. But be coy about it. Pump Lockett up a little more because he's the guy to pump up there. I think Pitts you can pump up a little bit too. Pitts is getting the targets, 17 through 3 games. That he is tied with Mike Davis for second. Calvin Ridley obviously a sizable advantage there in Atlanta, and Patterson was 16. But yeah, I think you can argue for a little more if we really want to nitpick. But the opportunity to land Kelsey, I think, Jake, that's the deal breaker for me, and I want to make that happen. And if you can nitpick kind of the depth with the trade around it, I would definitely go for it. Kenny should. What's up?
I was gonna say I have to run right now.
Okay.
I just want to throw this one last point out there.
Yep.
Regarding Tyler Lockett. He has a couple really, really nice nice stretches. I mean, the middle of the season, he plays Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Green Bay. Later on in the season, he plays Houston, Chicago, Detroit. So he might have a week or two in between all those runs, where he's not, not the guy, but some pretty favorable matchups in like 6 or 8, maybe even 9 games left this season. So that's my 2 cents about Tyler Lockett. I wish I could stay longer. I do have to run. I apologize. Thank you for all the comments. All of you, I hope, come back next week and either yell at us for being wrong or praise us for being right. We'll take either. Henry will take you the rest of the way. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, have a good night, Jake.
You too,
Somebody get this man a Lockett jersey. I think he has earned
it
for himself after
tonight.
Do not address it to me. I will not wear it. And yeah, so I guess I can run through here these last couple questions we just got in. And if anyone else has any others, feel free to drop them in. I'll do my best to be efficient here and pull things up as we go. Kenny asking, should I trade Joe Mixon for Jonathan Taylor and Devonta Smith? So, Kenny, I don't know if you were here earlier, but we were talking about Joe Mixon, high ankle sprain that he suffered last night. Zack Taylor, Bengals coach, saying it's minor. Initial outlook, though, from people with medical smarts seems to suggest he might miss a couple games. So, you could look at this for starters. What is your position right now, your team record, etc.? Are you in win now mode? Are you 3-0? And you're comfortable if Mixon does in fact miss a couple weeks. I'd also be looking at the rest of your roster and deciding if you're set at running back, or you need receiver help, etc. We talked about Devonta Smith too, just because he came up with a start sit. I think he has a really good week against Kansas City. He's getting targets in that Eagles offense, should be able to put some more fantasy points together, I would assume. Jonathan Taylor with the Colts does not excite me. I know they're shipping Marlon Mack out. They announced this week that they're going to work with Marlon Mack on finding a trade for him. But Jonathan Taylor and Nahim Heinz, the other Colts back there, they have seen a relatively even split in touches. And really just the Colts offense is kind of one that I'm not thrilled about right now. So I would monitor the Mixon injury reports. If it looks like he's going to be sidelined, and depending on your situation, if you need to win now and you need guys who can step in there, you can't afford Mixon sitting out. That would be where I come down. But overall, hard to get excited about Jonathan Taylor, honestly, which I know coming into the year, probably a lot of people would have done that trade in a heartbeat. But Timothy, looking at your chat right now, would you trade away Sterling Shepard for Chase Edmonds? Straight up. No. That's my initial reaction. Full PPR, and your second best running back right now is Miles Sanders. For starters, I would rather own Miles Sanders than Chase Edmonds. Sterling Shepard, I can dive into some numbers on him as we have a little bit of a surprise here. Look who's joining us. The legend himself, Fantasy Flurry.
Oh, yeah, that's me.
How
Jake
you doing?
just left you, huh? What a bad guy.
Apparently the cabin was about to get loud. I don't know what was going to happen, but the questions are still pouring in. So I appreciate you coming on because I struggle to multitask sometimes, looking at stats and trying to.
What's the current question? What do we got?
Currently, we're looking at Timothy. He's wondering about trading Sterling Shepard away for Chase Edmonds straight up. Currently, it's a full PPR league. His second best running back right now is Miles Sanders. Follow-up question here. He just sent in, would you do the same trade if it were Jacoby Myers going out and bringing in Chase Edmonds instead of Sterling Shepard?
I would do either one personally. Like
really?
it comes down to position need, and clearly if Miles Sanders is your RB2, then you need something. you're looking at, for me personally, I think all players involved are sort of meh. But in terms of who has the most to gain, like if James Conner obviously goes down, and Chase Edmonds' role grows. In terms of Sterling Shepard, he's already hurt. He's going to be concussed by week 8. Like this is, this is what he does. Jacoby Myers, he's the leading receiver there right now, but it switches each week. I mean, there's Bourne, there's Aguilar, and now it sounds like N'Keal Harry's coming back this week. Like New England pass catchers are worse than New England running backs now. Like I don't want anything to do with that. So if I'm looking at it like an investment as a stock or something, like I think there's no doubt in my mind that Edmonds has the most to gain this year.
I can get behind a little stock investment talk there. I like that breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jacoby Myers and Sterling Shepard both, but to your point, Sterling Shepard, I feel like that's a guy who has a lot to lose. If we're playing the other side of this, like you said, he's already dealing with injuries. He's lucky to even be playing football. I'm not quite sure why he's still playing football, to be honest with you, if I was him.
I don't know.
But yeah, and then I think you and I both kind of have differing views on Miles Sanders too. I think he rebounds. I think last week was an opportunity to go out and try and buy him low. But the same thing. I can see the other side of it too, where okay, what is this Eagles offense going forward? Is it the team that put up 30 plus points in week 1 against Atlanta, or is it the team that had no concept of a game plan whatsoever last Monday night and had 3 running plays to the running backs? So
yeah, that was still though, like off the top of my head, I can look up the exact stat, but Miles Sanders is very clearly in a split with Kenneth Gainwell. Like they gave Kenneth Gainwell snaps the first drive. So if Kenneth Gainwell goes down hurt in the same scenario like Chase Edmonds with James Conner going down hurt, it's not like Miles Sanders gets the workload. They just bring in Boston Scott to do the exact same role. Like the Eagles hate nobody more than Miles Sanders, except for maybe Doug Peterson or something. I don't know. But like they hate Miles Sanders. Like I think he's extremely talented. I think he could do more, but they don't, I guess. So that's why I thought he was going to have a bigger workload this year, and I was completely wrong. So I am just off the Miles Sanders train for now.
I completely understand. I might throw Nelson Aguilar in there as guys they really hate because he leaves Philadelphia and all of a sudden can catch a little more. So anyway, true. we're not catering to Eagles fans here on this show. Real quick, did you have any thoughts? Kenny asked a little bit earlier, and I had just finished it before you hopped in. Trading Joe Mixon to get Jonathan Taylor and Davonte Smith. So we got another Eagles situation here, but I know you and I are both kind of soured on Taylor and the Colts. But with Mixon's injury, I kind of left it up to him. Do you need to win now? And you can't afford to have Mixon sit there in your IR spot or on your bench for the next 2-3 weeks, whatever it is. In that case, I'd definitely be hopping on that. It's close either way. 2 for 1, but
I think for sure if you need to win now, definitely go for the 2. I mean, Mixon's just scary because last year we remember he got that foot injury and we thought he was going to come back soon. He wouldn't come back. All of a sudden was dancing in practice and then was still out another month. Like I don't know. And it definitely could have been a situation where we suck. Why would we bring this guy back? And that's totally fair. But it didn't sound like that. It sounded like he heard himself dancing and this and that. And I just don't want to deal with that. Jonathan Taylor is another person in a split, obviously. But he's good. I assume Davonte Smith would be an upgrade over somebody on your team. So, yeah, I think I would probably do that too.
Yeah, 100%. Jonathan Taylor actually is in the negative side of that split too. By the way, Nahim Heinz, 55.7% of the Colts offensive snaps. He was on the field last week. Now maybe chalk some of that up to the fact that they were behind late in that game, but Taylor less than 50%. So, it's a real split there, and just kind of one that's scary. The Colts offense kind of scares me just in general right now.
Did we not just answer Boss Man's question? Like, What are you complaining about, dude? Leave. Bye. And cry about it.
He's a buy low guy.
Isn't that who we were just talking about, JT?
We were talking about Kenny's question, but he's, I guess, commenting on our discussion. His question is actually start or sit Dak Prescott against the Panthers. I mean, I don't know why we're sitting
Who do you have? Start him unless you have somebody
Dak
better.
Prescott. Oh, I didn't see the complaint down here. All right, whatever.
Rankings, flurrysports.org. If I have a quarterback ranked above him and you have that quarterback, then I would start that quarterback.
Zach, how many quarterbacks do you have ranked above Dak Prescott this week? Probably not many, right?
Probably not many, for sure 5. He's outside my top 5. I can tell you though. Right. I have him currently at quarterback 9. So if you currently possess Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, Matthew Stafford, or Lamar Jackson, I would start one of them. Otherwise, I would start Dak Prescott.
I'd go with Prescott over Lamar Jackson, all of those other guys. I agree. TS, pick one for a PPR start. Michael Pittman, Juju Smith-Schuster, or Marquise Hollywood Brown. I can pick up Tim Patrick, Hunter Renfrow, or Emmanuel Sanders as well. You know, Michael Pittman, I'm really starting to get frustrated with his ability to catch the ball. 12 targets.
He's just not a good player. Like, I guess I don't know what no, he's not a good player. Like, I think he's fine.
Physical specimen, but he can't catch. Like, I'm still, like, interested in buying him low just because I feel like where else is the ball going right now? But I think you're starting to be proved correct with your assessment of him.
Into the dirt. I guess that's where the ball's going.
Yeah, really.
I come to a player. I think I would rather go Juju out of everybody here. I like Tim Patrick. He would probably be second in that list for me. But Juju, check the injury report just in case. But it sounds like he's going to be good to go. It's just a pain threshold thing with his ribs. And he's playing the slot, obviously, for the Steelers. So he would be going up against Kevin King's ruled out. So unfortunately, he will not play against Kevin King. But he will be going up against Chandon Sullivan, who also is not good at football. So I think that is a matchup that Ben should be able to exploit. Obviously, he's trying to get the ball out of his hands as soon as possible, as shown by the 19 targets to Naji Harris last week. I would assume that's where he goes. He's not going to see Jair Alexander coverage, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, the other angle I would look at too, Tim Patrick's the name that stood out to me in terms of guys he could pick up there as well. I know, you know, your perception is like, okay, Ravens are playing the Broncos. This feels like a 2017 game. This is not your dad's Baltimore Ravens defense with the injuries they have right now, particularly in the secondary. And Tim Patrick, you know, 2 touchdowns, 27.3% of red zone targets for Denver this season have gone his direction. 13 targets overall. He's caught 12 of them. Kind of a sneaky play there, just knowing what the Ravens cornerback situation is. I don't know. And it also maybe comes down to a little bit, you know, is Juju Smith-Schuster going to be fully healthy? But I would avoid Brown against the Broncos and just my general distrust of Lamar Jackson. MPX1606, is Antonio Gibson good to go?
In terms of injury, yes. In terms of being a fantasy contributor, not necessarily.
All right, so he followed up here. I just robbed my league mate last week. I traded Tyreek Hill and David Montgomery for Justin Jefferson, DJ Moore, David Montgomery, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Excited to see what they do. So I think David Montgomery he traded out along with Tyreek Hill for Jefferson, Moore, and Edwards-Helaire. Who should I start? Daryl Henderson or Edwards-Helaire? So we got a lot going on here. I guess the trade is what it is because it already went through. I have no problem with the trade, given Montgomery's situation and Tyreek Hill kind of underwhelming. So good that you're able to get all that back for him.
Mhm.
Henderson or Clyde Edwards-Helaire? What is Daryl Henderson's injury status?
He's playing.
Okay.
McVay said that today. But like I was saying, I don't know what day is it now, Friday. I think I was saying Wednesday or Tuesday that I'm just worried about Daryl Henderson's workload going forward. I believe his measurables are 5'8", 208. So, I mean, he's a tiny guy. He never should have been a bell cow running back. There was no reason for him to be. And then he got hurt immediately. We thought he would last at least slightly longer, but he didn't. And then Sony Michelle looked fine last week. So I'm worried that that's going to be a more even split, whereas Clyde Edwards-Helaire very clearly has the reins. I think he's a good running back, contrary to what everyone likes to say right now. And he plays the Eagles, and we saw what Ezekiel Elliott did last week. So I think it's pretty clear for me. I'd rather go the healthy Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. Not too much of not a whole lot else to say. I think Sony Michelle has looked good as well. I almost feel like Sony Michelle fits what the Rams need out of the running back position almost a little more, just because he's a straight runner. And the Rams don't really need the running back to catch passes anymore at this point. We think Todd Gurley having such a huge fantasy impact as a receiving back there a few years ago, but there are enough weapons in this offense where it's really just run the ball to keep defenses honest, I feel like, and Michelle can do that just fine. That might have been one of my, like a sneaky preseason trade that was like, oh, Sony Michelle, who cares? But they really, I think, did well to get him there. TS, another question, Chuba Hubbard or Kareem Hunt for his flex spot this week in a PPR league. So we talked about Hubbard a little bit the other night, Zach, with Trevor. Kind of like, he should have a solid role, but he's a rookie. Rookies sort of tend to struggle. He's getting thrust into a big workload quickly here. Carolina's playing Dallas, so Dallas's defense quietly, I feel like Dan Quinn's actually rallied the troops there a little bit. Am I wrong in saying that?
They at least know what they're supposed to be doing, which is better than past seasons. Like last year, they had no scheme. They were just out there running around.
They lost to Marcus Lawrence. They went out and shut down the Chargers pretty well, and then did well last week. So, like, who saw that come?
Right. This is a tough this or that for players for me. I currently have Kareem Hunt ranked above Chuba, like 3 spots above him. Hunt's 15 for me. It's like I think the workload for both are probably going to be about the same. That's why I feel like the Vikings defense is worse than Dallas's, like you were just talking about. It comes down to touchdowns probably, and who knows who's going to get the touchdown for either team. I will say the Panthers like to pass it when they get in close, whereas the Browns definitely do not. So I think I am going to stick with Hunt. I think it's close, and I don't think you have a wrong answer, though, which is nice.
Yeah, I would agree with you for sure on it being close. Vikings allowing an average of 22.9 fantasy points to running backs. The Cowboys down at 19.37, so they're a little better. Oh, man. I think if I got to pick a side, I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt. And it's, kind of going back to how I view the matchups a little more. I almost feel like the Cleveland-Minnesota matchup has a better chance of being a bit of an offensive show and point score, more opportunities for touchdowns than I do Carolina-Dallas. I almost feel like the Carolina-Dallas one could be first one to 24 wins. So I'll go with Kareem Hunt there as well, but I agree it's close. Let's see here, catching up. MP 1606 again. I wish Daryl Henderson would get the full starting job. He's been good when he plays.
Agreed.
Yeah, agree, but like Zach said, I don't know that he has the body to hold up for that. And then he says if Antonio Gibson plays, he will go crazy for like 25 plus points.
He should play. I mean, he was limited today. He wasn't held out. And then Rivera was talking about how he's pretty confident that he's going to play. So I guess I would look, but I'm not that worried. I would say 80-20 that he's playing.
Yeah. Do you think if he plays, he's getting 25 plus points? Because I tried to make the case to Jake earlier.
No.
I don't know if you were in here at that point, that the Falcons defense has not been as bad as you're necessarily thinking they've been. They haven't been good, but I feel like a lot of it is almost to blame on the offense. So is Gibson a lock to score that much?
No. I mean, definitely not. I think he's a good play. I have him at RB13. He's just, I don't know, man. That offensive line's not good. And he doesn't have the vision or patience to let them do something. But like Sam Cosmi, if you ask Pro Football Focus, he's a good player. If you ask his teammates, the dude sucks. Like, he has not been good so far. Rookie on the offensive line, there's going to be growing pains. I think he can be good. But, man, like, there's nowhere for him to run. Defenses do not respect Heineke, so they're crowding the line of scrimmages on top of it. Like, I just don't want anything to do with talking him up to be a 25-point scorer this week. That being said, he's 13. I think he's fine. He's going to have scoring opportunities, but I don't know. What do you think?
What we've seen out of running backs here this year too, like, 30 points. I think Naji Harris finished his RB1 last week, correct? And he had like 28 points, and that's PPR. So 25, you're looking at, really, if we want to go off of last week, RB top 5, I would say, and that's kind of almost being generous there. So compared to where you have him ranked, I would say probably maybe a little less than that. He goes on, unlocking Gibson is more on the defense. If defense lets offense get on the field more, then Gibson produces more. But if defense gives the other team 45 minutes per possession, you can't blame Gibson. And I think that is another,
for sure,
valid point. The Washington defense has been one of the biggest disappointments so far, at least for me, through 3 weeks, just from a football standpoint.
I mean, their linebackers are absolutely horrendous, and then they didn't do anything to address it. And then also, if the pass rush doesn't get home, we knew their secondary was bad. So I thought they would be better coached. It's not super surprising to see how bad they've been. But in terms of Washington's offense just not getting opportunity, that's valid. I wanted to look up the exact numbers. They have the 4th fewest offensive plays per game right now at 56. Only teams below them, Cincinnati, New Orleans, and Seattle. And that Seattle one is funny and concerning. And it's the reason why, well, part of the reason is because they scored every single time they touched the ball against the Colts. But aside from that, too, yeah, I mean, if Washington gets more plays, means more fantasy points. Pretty simple math. But he's also not impressing with his touches either.
Yeah, I would agree with pretty much everything you said. I think I thought the secondary for Washington was going to be a little better than they are. Maybe I was too high on Kendall Fuller and Landon Collins.
Collins has been all right.
Yeah,
he just can't do it by himself.
Martin Victorious. I mean, I guess this is a question for you because you're the boss. Around here, you guys do anything cool shit at 100 subs?
Well, we're past it.
Went over 100.
Yeah, so let me know. Do you want me to do some cool shit? I'll do it. What do you want?
This comes down to your definition of cool. MP 1606 again. A thing I heard that has me excited for Gibson is that last week Rivera said Heineke needs to learn to check it down more, and there are so many times where Heineke misses Gibson when he's wide open.
Agreed. Agreed. Is that going to happen? We'll see. But he should be better. Like, he's for sure not a guy I'm looking to sell right now. He's just not a guy I'm really trying to trade for. But, yeah, I think better days are ahead of him. I'm just not, I'm not overly confident given what I've seen around him. I think he's one of the better talents in the NFL, though, at the position.
Yeah. I want to back up for a quick second. If anyone has any last-minute questions, feel free to drop them in. We'll probably hop off here in a few minutes. Zach, you have to answer a question for me, though. going back to what it seemed like Tyler Lockett was coming up in every trade that was being thrown in the chat when Jake was on here.
Yeah.
You were in here for at least part of that because you had a great Tyler Lockett thing about how he does this every year. And I mean, this is a guy that I've literally never owned in fantasy and I don't want to own. Looking at, I don't know if you can remember the trade specifically. I can try and go back and find them if you want specific names, but how do you view him after 3 weeks? Obviously, the first two were good. Last week was very average, and he has a tendency to disappear. Is that a guy you're looking to, if the opportunity arises, sell him without hesitation? Are you looking to buy him if you can? Do you want to buy him if he's like an additional piece? If you're doing something else with a trade, where do you come down on that? Because I mean, Sunholz is going to get a freaking Lockett jersey in the mail after this show tonight. But
Yeah, I mean, he could have a good game this week, and if he does again, then I'm for sure selling him. I just want to look up his stats from last year. So, over his first 8 games, he had 53 catches on 70 targets, 615 yards, 7 touchdowns. Now, let's see what he did over the next 8 games. 62 targets, 47 yards, 439 or 47 catches, 439 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So, like half of what he did in the start. That was last year. Let me go back to the year prior because he did it then too. I know because I owned him. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. First 8 games. 54 targets, 46 receptions, 615 yards, 4 touchdowns. And then 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. He had, over his last 8 games, 36 catches, 442 yards, 4 touchdowns. Pretty even, but I mean,
still a lot less yardage there.
Well,
6 and 4, right?
He only had 2 games above 51 yards in the second half of the season.
Okay.
Like, he is super boomer bust. Well, we also have boomer bust rankings on the site too that I probably could bring up. But he is a nightmare. Like, I don't want any piece of him. So if I can trade, go for it.
Yeah. Is it just me, or does he almost feel like, we talk about running backs being touchdown dependent, and we kind of talked about that with Zack Moss a little bit, and I'm almost leaning towards Zack Moss is getting out of touchdown dependent territory, especially this week against Houston. Tyler Lockett feels like, I guess my perception is he's almost as touchdown dependent of a receiver as you're going to find, because it seems like in games where he finds the end zone, those are his good games. When he's not finding the end zone, he's not doing anything else to make up for it.
I was going to say that, like, I don't think he's like the label of touchdown dependent, but all of his touchdowns are like 50-yard bombs. So, like, either he's going to catch those 50-yard bombs and he happens to finish in the end zone, or he's just not targeted. Like, he's just game planned out. So, yeah, I think that's fair. Let me bring up his boom bust rankings, though, for sure. Because I think
Seahawks offense is also just kind of like, I don't know if I want to say confusing to me, or if the right word is maybe I'm a little concerned. Because, that second half against Tennessee, what happened there? Seattle has not scored in the third quarter all season. I believe they have like a whopping maybe 6 points, or maybe 2 scores or something like that in the second half of games all year. I can get that number while you're looking at or sharing these other boom or bust things. But these halftime adjustments, the Titans game for sure, they just got absolutely killed. And then again last week against the Vikings, like, shut them out in the second half. So if you're telling me I only have 30 points or 30 minutes in the game for an offense to do all of its work, that makes me sour on just Seattle players in general, I think.
Yeah, when the Seahawks run the ball, they're bad. When they let Russ cook, they're good. I think it's pretty simple. And then in terms of last season for Tyler Lockett in PPR, and by the way, he finished as wide receiver 10. So by all accounts, an amazing year, right? He was a top 6 player in 18.8% of his weeks. He was a top 48 player in 37.5% of the weeks. And he was a top 30 player in 37.5% of his weeks. And then he was outside the top 48 wide receivers in 44% of the weeks. So, like, he's the definition of boom bust. Like, he's great for best ball, but if he's not catching those touchdowns, he's not in the game plan. Simple.
Would you rather, and I think I know which way you're going to go with this, would you rather own DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett if you had to pick one of those two receivers? Because obviously DK Metcalf has his football issues, and that kind of translates over to fantasy. I don't love either one of them, but over this point on, which are you taking?
I mean, I guess I would take DK. It's come down a little bit considering he's the first player ever to strike out in a celebrity softball match. I don't respect him as a human after that. So it's a little more even for me. I think DK is going to come around a little bit. Like, the best part about Tyler Lockett's game is that he gets that second cornerback coverage. And like, I shouldn't be valuing that more than someone who's at least a better player, not more talented, but he's a better player.
Yeah, I completely hear you. DK also finished dead last in that Olympic trial 100 meter, like dead last. Come on, man. You couldn't even beat one guy. One last question.
Like I said it on the Monday show, Flurry Sports Podcast. He might be the greatest loser of all time. He loses at everything he does. Everything. So what?
Except shirtless pics with college teammates.
I don't know. I think AJ Brown's is better. Maybe like 10 years ago I could have. Not now.
I can't beat him now either. One last question before we get off here. Quick. LeBron's brain. Should I start Juju against the Packers or Emmanuel Sanders against the Texans? Zach, you were on Smith-Schuster in a question we had earlier. Is that where you're going here? I think I would be, just knowing the Steelers need to throw. And the way to attack the Texans is by running the ball. And I don't know how much the Bills are going to have to throw this week, to be honest.
That's the thing for me. I have him super close to my rankings, and I would say Sanders probably has the better shot at a touchdown, but I still have Juju above him, and it's solely on targets and receptions. To your point, they should be able to just run the football. And if there is one receiver that Josh Allen's going to force the ball to this week, just to sort of get him out of a funk, it would be Stefan Diggs, because he's been bad to start the year, just because he hasn't gotten the catches. So if they're up and they're still trying to step on the Texans' throat, like just trying to rack up all the points, then I mean, he's going to force it just fun. And yeah, Juju has bruised ribs, but that means nothing. All that means is it's a pain threshold thing. He's not hurt, or he's not injured. He's hurt. If he gets hit, it's going to hurt. Sure. You know what fixes that? Toradol. He's going to get a nice shot. As long as the doctor doesn't puncture his lung like Tyrod Taylor, he's going to be okay.
So I have a conspiracy theory. I don't think Tyrod Taylor's actually hurt right now. I think he's just too good.
I said it during the game. Like, when he ran it in. Yeah, when he ran it in, he started
I didn't even know you said it.
Yeah, like he got the call from the owner's box. Like, yeah.
I know Trevor was like in the discussion too, like on Twitter. He and I were going back and forth about how Tyrod Taylor was good. But okay, so it's not just me and Trevor. Zach's officially in with us. The Texans are tanking. I don't want to hear it. And Tyrod Taylor deserves to be a starting quarterback in the NFL right now. That'll do it for us. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, for all of the questions. This chat is like scrolling on the page. So great stuff. Thank you, Zach, for pinch hitting here the back half of the show. We went a little longer than I thought because you were able to come on and impart some of your wisdom on the viewers and on me. So I really appreciate it. Coaches Start Sit articles, the official fantasy football Start Sit columns are up and available for you over at flurrysports.org, as are the weekly streamers, tight ends, quarterbacks, defenses, whoever you need to stream, go find those. We got literally betting previews and breakdowns inside those previews for every game. The ones that aren't available, they'll be coming. I think it's literally like the Texans and Bills at this point, and the Bills are going to win. I can tell you that right now. So yeah, go check those out. The NFL section, drop down menu, NFL stats. You guys definitely should head over there and look at some of those. I throw out those stats all the time on this show. And when you're weighing matchups and whatnot, looking at targets, looking at snaps played, you're on the field. Zach's got all kinds of stuff broken down over there. So head over, check those menus out. There's like 5 of them. glorysports.org is where it's happening. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow on Twitter. Follow Fantasy Flurry on Twitter. Follow Senholes on Sport. The Departed Jake. Anything I'm missing?
If you like this in the YouTube chat, definitely subscribe. If you're a Packer fan or just want to watch some Inside Packer highlights, we just posted a video earlier today about Packer highlights from the past like 5-6 years. It seems like Luke Reimer, one of the Flurry Sports members, he has season tickets, so he's at Packer games all the time. There's some unique angles on some really cool highlights. Definitely worth watching no matter what. They're pretty cool.
I'm not a Packers fan, but I might just have to mosey on over and check that out. So find that on the Flurry Sports YouTube. You can find all our streams from this week archived too if you want to go back and see the ranking show or anything else as you're weighing your decisions, your line of decisions going into week 4. That'll do it. Good luck to everyone in matchups this weekend, and enjoy. Go Ole Miss tomorrow. Shock the world and beat Bama, baby. We will talk to you guys next week. They'll be back with the recap stream. So thank you, Zach. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.